Holy City Center Radio. It is episode 302, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Wednesday, October 16th, 2024. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I hope you've been having an amazing week. Boy, do we have a big show for you today. My guest is Sarah Silverman, a two-time Emmy Award-winning comedian, actress, writer, and producer. She is bringing her post-mortem tour to the Charleston Music Hall on Thursday, November 7th at 7 p.m. Tickets are on sale now through Ticketmaster, as well as the Charleston Music Hall website. Don't go to any other websites, but besides those two, there's a lot of those, third parties out there and everything, where you're going to pay these ridiculous prices. Always go to those two websites for shows at the music hall. Make sure you're getting the best pricing possible. But in any event, so excited to talk to her today. Such a thrill, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the interview. If you're somehow unfamiliar with Sarah Silverman, she's been in all sorts of things over the years, obviously. Being a comedian and actress are the two things you most likely know her from. Her most recent special is called Sarah Silverman, Someone You Love. It is now streaming on Max, and the album for that special is available on vinyl and all streaming platforms. In addition to that, you can also hear her own critically acclaimed weekly podcast, the Sarah Silverman Podcast. You can listen to that anywhere that you get podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this show, you can find hers as well. She's also recently appeared in Netflix's Emmy-nominated Maestro. And of course, come on, there's just so many things. I could run down the specials and the Sarah Silverman program and all the other things she's done over the years. She's been on Saturday Night Live. She had a show called I Love You, America. She does a voice on Bob's Burgers. On and on and on. You get the point. So without any further delay, let's get into the interview. And joining me now, as promised, is Sarah Silverman, who is performing at the Charleston Music Hall on Thursday, November 7th at 7 p.m. Get those tickets now, Ticketmaster.com and CharlestonMusicHall.com. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today. It's a great honor to have you here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be here.
Very nice of you to say. And yeah, like I just mentioned, you're coming into town here in a little bit, and the tour is called the Postmortem Tour. And I believe I've heard you previously say on some other interviews I've happened to catch that the title of the tour has a few meanings, actually, right?
Well, yeah, it's kind of a little bit literal because it's about my parents dying. My dad and my stepmother died a year ago last May in 9 days apart. And it was wild. And, but I promise it's funny. It's very funny. And, postmortem, of course, we usually say after you do a show or something to talk about notes and, figure out how to do it better and everything. So it's got, I guess, kind of a double meaning.
And of course, sorry to hear about your parents, and I'm sure you've had to talk about this a lot. So I don't know if that's easy. You're doing it on stage and in interviews, so it's got to be.
It's hard to convince people to come out to a show that it sounds depressing.
Well, I kind of getting into that. For me, with comedy, obviously doing comedy is hard, but when it comes to darker subjects or things that are sad or controversial, which you are no stranger to doing in your act throughout the years. To me, when you can thread that needle on those topics, that's a little bit more impressive than, whatever other types of, jokes that, you may tell. I don't know if you feel that way when you're crafting jokes or putting together a set like this, where there's a little bit, maybe some darker themes or things, but when you can really thread that needle, not only is it impressive, but it can be helpful for people who may be going through something similar.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is. It's a, I've always kind of talked about the darkest corners of humanity. So in that way, it's not different. It's different kind of because it's a little bit more stays on one general topic, but it kind of it digresses a lot too. And but yeah, it is tricky, and the tour is where I'm really figuring it out before I shoot my special. And I'm 4 shows in, and I'm still figuring pieces out. you can't just write and perform in front of your mirror like at home with stand up. You need the crowd. The crowd is does half the work, and
Right.
so, I'll be closer by the time I come to Charleston, but I need Charleston's help too.
Well, well, first, before we get back to the need help part, how has the tour been, these 4 shows so far?
It's been great, really fun, and, I'm figuring I don't know that the average person would recognize the differences or,
Right.
but it's a lot of, tweaking, a lot of honing, and I'm someone that could hone forever, so, like, having an end point where I shoot the special is really key for me because I would just hone jokes forever and never finish them and never move on otherwise.
Yeah, I figure, a set is never really ever done. Like you kind of just said, there's always something you might think, even years down the line, oh, I could have said this or done that or whatever.
That's why
But
I can't bear to watch because I'll be like, "Oh god, why didn't I there should be a beat there. That has too much setup there," and it's a little bit torture, but I've got like 2 more weeks of shows after I shoot the special, and that's when I'm terrified I'm going to like figure out the big, skeleton key to this section or whatever. It's like, "Oh god." But
do you do you notice when you go to different cities at this point in your career any significant differences in terms of reactions to jokes? Is it really ever like that big? You're like, whoa, this city really didn't like this run, or do you ever notice that, or is it pretty much the same? Everyone kind of has fairly similar tastes as far as the crowd in general.
In general, it's fairly similar, but no, different cities and different places can be wildly different. One joke could kill one night, and the next joke almost no laugh. And that's the interesting thing about how audiences really are like mobs. They really become one. They don't realize it individually, but they do. So and then also that could have been I left out a word that was key information for you know what I mean? It's all practice, practice, practice to make sure everything is right. And only the audience can really tell me that. So I kind of have to keep track and see how, I record every show, and it's like sports, you watch the footage back and you go, oh, right. I should have blocked, here. I don't know that much sports jargon,
No,
but
that's okay. I understand what you're saying. It's kind of like you're watching the tape after the game.
yeah,
You want to
exactly.
see like what could I have done better here, or oh, this crowd, why didn't they react the same way this one did? So you're kind of fine tuning after every single performance.
Yeah, listening back is kind of torture for me, but
Oh,
it's
yeah.
so fruitful. Like it's just so helpful because the every audience really is so different, and I'm psyched about Charleston. I don't think I've played Charleston before for some reason.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that, and I know you've toured all over, and it's probably a blur. But I was trying to remember too. I've been here for 15 plus years, and I couldn't remember a time you've been in this area, the Charleston area either. So it'll be exciting for your fans who haven't been able to see you yet to come on out and catch you at this great venue we have.
I know. What is this is South Carolina is home of what? Stephen Colbert, Aziz
That's right.
Ansari, a lot of
Yep.
awesome, comics.
We got
So
Danny McBride and Bill Murray live down here as well. So we got some funny folks that live here.
oh my gosh, I didn't realize that. That's so cool.
Yeah,
What
McBride does
like
all his like Righteous Gemstones and all those shows he's been doing. They've been filming those down here.
oh man, that's so cool. Yeah, I love that like quote unquote Hollywood or like these TV shows are like really going different places in the country and like kind of making it just everywhere. It's so cool.
Yeah, we've got here in Atlanta, of course, is a big filming. Not like 5-ish hours from here, if that. So yeah, we get some stuff here. We get a little of like Atlanta's overflow with productions. If they can't film there, they'll film here, which is a lot of fun.
That's so great. Yeah, what do I need to see? Like if I'm like what can I go do in Charleston if I have, 4 hours of that day?
Well, that's great that you asked because I was going to ask you what a typical show date is, and like, do you really have a lot of time? But it sounds like you said you only have a handful of hours. So, for number one, we're a big food and bev town. Like, food is off the charts here, and you're going to be right in the heart of downtown for this show. So many good restaurants, especially of course seafood. And then if you're into like history and stuff, you can take tours. We got Fort Sumter, which is like a boat tour that you can go out if you're into that stuff. We have the tip of the peninsula of Charleston has this park, and it's just beautiful because you can like see out into the Atlantic Ocean, but it's a harbor, so there's you can see kind of like sea islands on either side. It's hopefully too, weather should be amazing. In terms of, I know it's November, but I think you're in LA, right? So how it can be kind of nice in the winter months. So there's plenty you could do. Those are the big things though: history and food and bev for sure.
As a New Englander, I love a harbor. But
Yes, exactly.
this is where I'm gonna lose people. I'm a vegetarian, and I've never tried fish, which is
Oh,
crazy.
okay.
England. I'm from clam and lobster world, but I just never.
Right.
I don't know how my parents didn't make me eat fish, but I never ate.
I know it's kind of like a rite of passage up our way where we're both from, but there's plenty of other options. Most restaurants have some form of vegetarian or vegan option. We even have a couple vegetarian specific or vegan specific spots as well. And so you'll be
Yeah,
able to find delicious vegetarian food as well. You don't have to, go do seafood in that case.
yeah. I want to find like the granola hippies that make veggie burgers and stuff.
I can definitely send some recommendations your way, and you can enjoy those while you're here for sure.
Perfect.
So you mentioned earlier, and we're talking about Charleston. You might need Charleston's help with getting some ideas about the special and crafting it all together. But the date of the show, November 7th, we, the crowd, might need your help in laughing, as that is just 2 days after Election Day.
I mean,
And
I can't believe it. I'm in Ohio for election day.
oof,
I'm, and then I stay an extra day, hang out with some friends in Ohio, and then I'm in Charleston. And we probably won't know. We'll probably find out the winner like that day, don't you think? I
that's what
think
I
it
was
takes for
thinking. We might not even know when, by the time you take the stage, we still might not know who won. So it could be a little stressful, a little nerve wracking, depending on where we're at. So I know that a lot of people will certainly be looking for some laughs that day.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I hope we'll be celebrating, but either way, come out and we'll be together. Um, yeah, that'll be cool. I
Exactly.
got
Just
my
like with,
absentee ballot.
you already filled out your ballot, you said?
No, I just got it. I'm pulling it out of
Oh,
my
okay. Gotcha.
right now so I don't forget.
Yeah, I think early voting starts here on Monday, so I'm hoping to get it out of the way.
Yeah.
Not that, South Carolina, we know where this state's going, but got to get that vote in anyway.
Yeah, especially there.
Yeah, exactly. Down ballot's the most important, of course, in this area, anyway. But yeah, we might, like you said, sense of, I think this relates to the show, as well, possibly. I obviously haven't seen it yet, but based on what you've said about exploring some, sad and darker themes, again, depending on what's happening, you can relate in a completely different way, of course, and we can have a sense of community, laugh together, and again, when it comes to
Exactly.
sad things, just being able to laugh about them, it can certainly help and help people get through.
Yeah. So we'll either celebrate or let's all be together and not be alone.
Yeah, exactly. So let's see. You have been just going on this tour, as you mentioned, and you're filming a special in a little while. And then you said after that, you're still going to perform the show after the special is performed. I didn't realize that was something. I thought once the special's been recorded, that's it for that material. Or is it just when it finally comes out?
It's when it finally comes out. That never really occurred to me. I always ended with that, but I realized I could squeeze in more dates, and go more places after just the way the schedule worked out. But God forbid I come up with a new bit that, or I guess that connects to something from the show. If I just come up with a new bit, great. Then I'll have a new bit for when I start over, which will be immediately after.
Of
So
course, right. As soon as it's over, you'll have this amazing idea, of course. But you can just put that in the next special.
hopefully, yeah, exactly.
Now, you also, I think I saw or read in one of your interviews that this is the first time you're ever offering merchandise. Is that correct?
I forget. I think I had a little bit of merchandise last time, but yeah, this is like full on merch. I never have, I really never have like merch like this. And some of it's evergreen and some of it is post-mortem, specific and definitely stuff that you see in the lobby going in, you won't understand as much as you will coming out. But some really cool stuff. My favorite is like this kind of rugby shirt that's, definitely
Oh,
my
yeah. I think it's like a blue with white lettering, right? Blue and red. I think I saw
yeah,
it on your website. Yeah, it looked really cool. That was my favorite of all the ones I saw.
and it's all on my website, sarahsilverman.com, which I've never had either. I just bought it because I don't know, I just never, people buy people's, names and
Oh,
everything.
right.
Never owned it, sarahsilverman.com. Someone just got it and then want, to sell to me. And I was like, keep it. I don't know, whatever. So I sucked it up and bought it so everything can be in one place. And so it's fun to have like merch and you can get tickets there and you can everything's there in one place, which is cool and also funny to me.
That kind of makes me think with, obviously comedy. I mean, there's changes in comedy, of course, but, comedy is comedy. You get what's supposed to happen there. But it seems the platforms or the way that it's promoted or what have you has changed a lot over, I mean, the last 10 years for sure, but even the last, say, 5 years with social media platforms and websites obviously have been around for a while, but the fact that you didn't have your own, didn't think it was something that was necessary. Have you noticed that there's been a lot of changes with the way you get your news or, comedy out there for people?
I mean, definitely like, I've been dragging my feet, but I'm kind of full on Instagram now and Twitter. The site formerly known as Twitter has kind of become a cesspool, but I'll
Yeah,
occasionally
yeah.
there, just to get because I have a lot of followers there, but I don't know, is anyone still there? It's kind of
Oh, it's
I
awful.
don't
I'm still
recognize
there because that's where I have the most of my followers for this
it.
website and everything, and yeah, it's awful.
Yeah, but I do, the one thing I always liked, like I moved to Threads and I was like, yeah, no, I'm doing Threads, but I like when there's like a news feed and trends
Yes.
stuff. It's just kind of harder to break through the BS, and it's a skill that I think hopefully kids are learning now to figure out what's real and fake. But boy, I'm having a real
Oof.
hard time with it, to be honest. I mean, better than like people older than me or people less maybe even savvy than me, but it's pretty it's wild out there,
Yeah, and
misinformation is
you see
king.
tweets now with like a blue check mark. You're like, oh, it's a reporter or something, and that's not the case. Like anybody can just buy the blue check mark. So you really have to be like, all right, who is this? What is Oh, it's awful.
It's literally the opposite now. It's like
Exactly.
I saw that I still have a blue check mark, but I do not pay the $8 a month. I feel like they decided to leave mine to make it look like I'm paying $8 a
Yes.
month.
Oh,
I'm absolutely not.
absolutely. I remember when this all started, there was a bunch of, celebrities and other people who were, whether it's reporters, whatever. Yeah, same thing. Like, I'm not paying for this, but I still have it. Definitely we're like trying to lend, like, oh no, all these cool people are definitely paying for it. So you guys should too.
Yeah, that was absolutely a sham. Yeah.
Well, going back to the show and we kind of talked about sense of community, being together and all that. You have a podcast that it's kind of similar to these themes where it's, advice-ish podcasts, I guess, for lack of a better term, where people call in and, tell you about something going on in their life, and you give them some advice, of course, with humor as well. So it seems like lately anyway, it seems there's a lot of this like community building and, you know, uh, connecting with your fans, and maybe more so than you did in the past because of all these extra platforms. Have you
Yeah,
enjoyed doing that podcast?
I love it. I never wanted to do a podcast, and everyone does a podcast. Would I do one? I had no interest. But when the pandemic happened, and I, for months and months and months and months, couldn't do stand up. I hadn't not done stand up for that long since I was a teenager, and it was really disorienting, and I didn't have a place to put everything. All my
Yeah, your creative outlet.
yeah, I just all of a sudden was like, and so I said, okay, I'll do a podcast, and I knew I didn't want guests on it because even like when I wrote my book, The Bedwetter, HarperCollins, of course, wanted me to ask celebrities to blurb it. And I'm asked to blurb books all the time, and I just won't do it. That horrifies me. The thought, I'd like to ask someone to read my book, like
Right.
it's just not for me. So I made up fake blurbs. So to do a podcast, the thought of interviewing people where I would have to call, ask friends to do my podcast because I'm on the
Mm.
other side of that all the time. I really, it made me nauseous. It like makes me sick to my head. It makes me like very feel nauseous. So I knew I didn't want to do that. And, I really like how Bill Burr just goes, he just talks and talks. And I want to also connect with people, So we put up a phone line, and my friends Moshe and Natasha Leggero, Moshe Castro and Natasha Leggero,
Hmm.
who do Endless Honeymoon, do calls too. And I always thought that was so cool. So we've set up a phone line, and people can call in with anything. They can yell at me, they can have questions, they can have comments, they can, make statements, they can whatever it is. And the calls really dictate the trajectory of the podcast, and it's become something that the callers made it become. And it's so it is kind of an advice thing, but it's not what I intended, which I kind of love.
Yeah, no, it's great too because you can hear, how much your fans, adore you and appreciate what you've done, and they talk to you on these voicemails like they've talked to you a million times before, even though you probably have never met, and then yeah, you always say something, whether it's advice like you said or just commenting back on whatever they said with some humor and things. Yeah, it's been fun. I've been listening for a while, and it's just it's a fun, just something different, like you said, not the typical
It,
comedian
it's so
interviewing a comedian thing.
it's like hard comedy, anything goes, like language, anything, but also like heartbreaking and serious or real stuff too. And it just is whoever's calling in. And the thing I love the most is, sometimes people call with stuff that is a, above my pay grade. Like,
Right, sure,
I'm
sure.
not going to pretend that it's not. So I'll go, God, I don't want to answer this wrong, and I really don't know. My instinct is XYZ. But what I do know, and what always happens, is that other callers call in with answers. And it's just been this like community that just is, I find it very moving and also sometimes hilarious.
Oh no, absolutely. It's both. I agree with you there, and we keep talking about, especially me. I keep bringing it up. That sense of community, I think, goes through the podcast, and it sounds like with this tour, you'll have that as well with, telling jokes about whatever it may be. I know you said you're going to go down different paths here and there, but kind of has this overriding theme, which can be a little sadder or darker, but you're bringing humor to it, and I think people will really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll get you a packed house here in Charleston. Do you have a last pitch or anything you want to tell people about the show to, encourage to get those last few tickets sold?
I mean, just come out. Let's hang out. We'll be together. I mean, I feel like the show's really conversational, and I mean, and it's let's just spend an hour together. I don't know.
It sounds good.
End
And
up with a cup of tea, but come find out.
yeah, come hang out with some friends and commiserate and laugh and all those good things. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about, whether it's projects or anything else you want to talk about or plug?
I feel like we covered it all. I can't wait to get there.
Yeah, I'm excited to see you, and I know lots of people here in the city are as well. And I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me. I could talk to you forever. It's been fun, but I've taken too much of your time, and I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, Christian.
And that'll do it for this edition of Holy City Center Radio. Such a big thank you to Sarah Silverman for joining me today. What a treat. It was awesome to be able to chat with her for a little bit. Don't forget to see her at the Charleston Music Hall Thursday, November 7th at 7 p.m. Tickets are available through Ticketmaster.com and CharlestonMusicHall.com. Thank you to Lindsay Marie Collins for producing this and every episode of Holy City Center Radio, and also Tyler Boone, whose music you hear in each and every show. And of course, a big thank you to all of you for listening. I greatly appreciate it. If you want to help out a little more, rate, review, like, subscribe, whatever you can do on the platform you're listening to this podcast on, please do so. It's a big help and gets this podcast out to other people. I hope you have a great rest of your week. I will be back on Friday. Looking forward to it. Until then, good night and good luck.